Many of the fire's victims now found themselves the subject of police suspicion.
He told me they didn't want to take any police station. And while I was there with her, there was writing. And one of them turned to Denise while halfway in the writing. And he said, don't tell no lies. These are the words, and I always remember, don't tell no lies. Just tell us that there was fighting in the house.
And I was trying to explain that, this is what I know, this is all I know. But they were saying, well, didn't you see a fight sort of thing, you did see a fight. And basically, I was giving them the statement, but it was like they were totally sort of like twisting it, and whatever I said didn't matter anyway, so. It was a long old night, that was.
And they tell her, if you don't tell us, remember, you have your dead brother Andrew in the fire. So how did the fire start? How would she know? She didn't know.
There were times when I did feel, especially when I was being interviewed by the police, I felt like, hold on, I am the victim here. Yet I feel as if I'm a suspect, sort of thing, yeah. Most definitely, yeah.
No one was ever charged with starting the fire, and the case would never be solved. But the episode had raised the bitterness in the black community to a new pitch.
Nobody in any official position had begun to understand what had happened in the black community.
This man, he had no money to bury his child. So we went to the undertakers. And I rang the bank manager and I said to him, we haven't got any money in the bank, but could we arrange a funeral? And he said, it's all right, Mrs. Phoenix. I understand, don't bother about it. Arrange the funeral. So I wrote the check from my husband's checkbook for the first 2 funerals.
The people that were involved are the Sybil Phoenixes. I mean, Sybil Phoenix is nobody couldn't tell me Sybil Phoenix is not an angel sent down from heaven to help. These people helped, and they helped a lot. But they couldn't do it all. Where was the help?
The local community's feeling of isolation was focused by one extraordinary omission. Customarily, when such a tragedy occurs, a letter of condolence is sent by the Queen. No such letter was ever received.
I think it was a sign that in our attitudes, and I say our, I mean in the CRE, in government, in Buckingham Palace, weren't fully sort of on a wavelength with the multiracial community, and didn't instinctively feel, well, this is awful, this is a national disaster, whether it's black people who died or not, we must take the proper action.
What heightened the contrast, of course, is that only a few days after the fire in which these black people had died, there was fire in Dublin, I think it was, and immediately, you see, there were messages of condolence from officials and authorities in this country, and no one had said anything to the parents of these children.
The Prime Minister, the Queen, and everybody, they were in Ireland, fast, sending their condolences to families of people that had died and been injured and whatever not. But no one ever came down to see us. No one ever picked up the phone to say, well, how are you? How are the children? What happened? Whatever not. It didn't matter. We didn't matter. We weren't even an afterthought, because you would have thought that after going to Ireland, somebody would have said to them, well, hey, what about the kids down in New Cross? We wasn't even an afterthought because nobody came to see us. Nobody mentioned anything about us.
The anger and despair of the black community was to culminate in an unprecedented event. A protest march of black people from the scene of the fire into the heart of the capital.
It was important for us to bring London to a standstill, to say we're here. Look at us, we're here, we're hurting, and you're not doing anything about it. You're pretending it hasn't happened.
We wanted to show solidarity with the families. We wanted to demonstrate that this is something important to our community. It was something we had to do, and so we marched.
As the protesters assembled on the morning of March the 2nd, the only question was just how many would answer the call.
I remember getting there early and thinking, not knowing how many people there were going to be there. That was the first thing, wondering how many people would come. And being, I suppose, as we set off, pleased but also a little disappointed that there weren't more people. And thinking, well, you know, I wonder how this will go.
It was quite a modest beginning. There was about 2,000 or 3,000 people. But all along the march, we kept on picking up more people, more people. By the time we reached Camberwell, we must have had about 5,000, 6,000 people. School children were climbing over fences to come and join the demonstration in Peckham.
All the kids were jumping over the fences, and like it was awesome. It was just amazing to sort of like be there and see that many people. I never realised how many people actually sort of like, you know, was in support of us until I saw them all scaling these fences basically and sort of like joining in the march, and that was a real sort of like, it was touching.
Then you saw waves and waves and waves and waves and waves and waves and waves of black people coming down that hill. It was at the charge of the Light Brigade, I tell you.
We saw black people leaving their offices, running out, grabbing their coats. It wasn't planned. Many of them lost their jobs in order to support the day of action as it was. And I felt good to know that people was doing so.
By the time the march entered the centre of London, over 15,000 people had massed on the streets, far surpassing all expectations.
It was thought that people wouldn't come from all over the country, for instance, and descend upon Deptford and then be prepared to march in hundreds and thousands through the streets of London. We were quite wrong, of course, about that, and I think we probably underestimated the strength of feeling that there was in the wider black community.
I think even the black community itself was surprised that it had so much power to mobilize so many people, because people came from Leeds, from Bradford, from Huddersfield, from Derby, from Manchester, from as far as Scotland. People came down for this demonstration. People came from all over the country.
Britain's black communities had come together as never before. The old and the young joined in a common cause.
The wonderful thing was that feeling of solidarity, and to look around and see these older people trudging along, obviously quite tired really and footsore, but nonetheless trudging along. And it was the youngsters who kept up the chant, you know, 13 dead, nothing said. What do you want? Justice. When do you want it? Now.
People were angry. I mean, a lot of youths wanted to do some bad things to people. I mean, we had to restrain a lot of people on the march, you know, and, you know, because people were so angry, people were so bitter. Not just about what happened, but about the way the whole business was handled by the police and the way it was reported in the press and the media. You know, that is what caused the bitterness, really.
I can remember walking up Fleet Street and looking up at the people leaning out of the Daily Telegraph building, you know, and I remember the noise echoing in between the buildings.
When we reached Fleet Street, there was a torrent of abuse from the Sun, from the windows of the Sun newspaper and other, I don't know if it was the Express, but definitely people working in the offices of the Sun newspaper shouted nothing but racial abuse at the demonstration. Go back home, you black bastards, and the usual banal kind of things that these people say, you know.
I was with the young people, and the more you looked at them, the more you realized they could have been killed in that and nobody would care. I think it's the lack of care that kept me going.
It wasn't just about the fire, it wasn't just about the people that died, the people that were injured in it, it was about people's underlying feelings from way back when, from the troubles up in Notting Hill and whatever not, that my mum and my dad used to tell me about. Things have built up and built up over a period of time, over years, all different things that have happened, and nothing had ever come to... Black people, we had never come together in such a great force to say, something's got to be done. This has got to stop.
I remember walking through the West End later and being pleased at that point that nothing had come out of the day which could undermine the seriousness and dignity of our purpose. That was very important.
The demonstration had passed off largely without incident, but when it came to the reporting of the march, a rather different story would be told.